Well, it's a great privilege for me to be here on this wonderful occasion. Um, as Tommy Crow said, that we are all members of Giorgio fan club, and I am too. But a fan club member still has to find a good occasion to come and celebrate the fanship, if that is a word that exists. And what could be a better occasion than the publication of a very great book reflecting the genius of George in all his aspects, actually. They're reflected as it's a wide-ranging set of contributions. Is this sound quite all right? I've been learning various things, and from Tommy Crow how to control the mic, from Kishore how to arrange a standing ovation by not giving chair to people. All kinds of tactics. Until Tommy Crow, the best lesson I had about microphone was from a nightclub singer who told me that the best way of doing it is to keep the microphone low, but try to kiss the microphone without actually kissing it. So you have to be close to it. So anyway, I've learned these technological issues all the time. But the great thing that I learned from the book, and that everyone who will read the book will learn, are the variety of problems that Asia faces, that the world faces, and how to think about them. And the role of George as a great scholar, as a great soldier, as a great statesman, as a great speaker, and as overwhelmingly a great writer, comes out very sharply in the book. And I'm sure this book will be tremendously appreciated across the world, and I'm privileged to be here on this occasion at this time when the book is being released. It's been a great privilege for me to work with George on the Nalanda University. The idea of Nalanda University, of course, had been in the minds of people ever since, actually, shortly after Buddha's own time, though the first construction of the university didn't begin until the 5th century. It died, you mentioned Oxford and Cambridge. In fact, it was destroyed just after Oxford had been founded and just before Cambridge had been founded. So Oxford and Nalanda had some time together. Cambridge and Nalanda did not. They were, as mathematicians put it, disjoint sets over time. But it was amazing to think, where I would take a slight issue, there's not one of the great institutions. It was the only university in the world which was providing that kind of education. And indeed, for 600 years before the first European university, Bologna, was founded, Nalanda was educating people, giving them higher education systematically, not just Buddhist studies, that too, but also on language and literature, medicine and public health care, astronomy and mathematics, and so on. And when one goes there, as George and I have been doing over the last 7 years or so, it's actually quite remarkable to think. I mean, this is one of the striking things, that when you dig a place, and there's one excavation going on very close to Nalanda, Telhara, and what do you find? The two objects that you find are lecture halls and students' dormitories. Now, one of the striking things is that that's the way universities are done these days. But to think that when Nalanda was doing it, no one had done it before. To think that that is the way to do it, that is to have lecture halls, to have student dormitories, and indeed, at the peak in 7th century, it had 10,000 students, gone from India, China, Japan, Korea, Sumatra, across the entire Asian land. And They came, and sometimes they came with earlier education. There was a relationship with the Srivijaya thing in Sumatra and Singapore, because they already started the Nalanda Srivijaya Center. And it indicated how dependent they were on each other, namely Yi Jing, for example, who wrote the first book on comparative medicine in the world, comparing Chinese and Indian medicine. He spent a year in Sumatra learning Sanskrit before he took another boat from Sumatra to land somewhere quite close to Calcutta in Tamaulipas, and then took the land route to go up to Nalanda. So that creation of a university in a world where universities were not known because they didn't exist is one of those things where both George and I have been involved, and as the Chancellor who's moving on from that role, I can't express adequately how secure I feel that the work that we were trying to do, in which of course George had been big involved, not only in thinking of the idea, but there were a number of others, by the way, not just Kalam, but this idea of reviving Nalanda had figured again and again. I remember my grandfather telling me when I was 11 that their plans of reviving Nalanda University didn't happen until the East Asia Summit came in. And I think that defining moment of the East Asia Summit would not have happened but for George's leadership. And when we go back there, it's difficult terrain, actually. It might have been the center of academic world at one stage, but it is almost inaccessible now. You arrive in Patna, and you take a perilous journey over 2.5 days. When I took my wife to see Nalanda and Tilhara exhibition, and she said, after having these perilous roads where some of those bridges being constructed, she said, I've never been to as moving a place before, and I've never felt as much danger of my life on the road as we were on going to Nalanda. So he has been raising that. Even the airplanes we go are quite often very tiny. I remember sitting next to George in one of those only one class airplanes with hardly enough place to keep your legs. And I was sitting next to George. I said, George, when was it last? I mean, I bet you've never really traveled in such a strict condition. And George said, well, you forget I was in the Air Force. And I think of George often when I'm in similar circumstances. I imagine I'm in the airport without having done for the Air Force anything, unlike George. But and this was, by the way, before George had met Pope Francis, so he didn't know that building freedom in small space was one of the tasks that he has to pursue. And Nalanda was building a modern university, modern secular university. The issue, some of the tension issues that George very briefly referred to, comes from that, namely it has to be secular.